Nobody can quite place his exact date of birth, probably 18. And so he was called Kabu, and he was born in what is known as Liberia to a chief. He was the son of a chief, so that means he was from royalty, you know. But then his village was one of the poorest villages in Liberia, and as is the norm in such places, there used to be a lot of intertribal wars. I think a lot of us are familiar with that, because the intertribal is because they're fighting for resources. And so, being that his tribe was very weak, very poor, at one time another tribe came, fought, and they took Kabu, this young man called Kabu. He was a prince, he was a teenager then. They took him as a hostage, and they were demanding for ransom. I think it was supposed to pay food, in terms of food, I think, not money, obviously. They really, really struggled to raise even what was necessary to pay. And by the way, remember, Kabu was like his heir. He was the royal prince. He was the crown prince. The father now figured, he thought he'd come up with this really brilliant idea. He was trying to negotiate with the kidnappers. I have a daughter. Why don't you can have the girl in exchange for the boy. I mean, he meant well, obviously. By the standards of those days, he meant well. When Kabu had that, he said no, because he knew what a gruesome experience that he had gone through. And he thought to himself, there's no way he's going to subject his sister to that. And so it got to a point where it seemed as though there was an impasse, because the tribe did not have any more ransom to pay to these people. These people are getting more and more frustrated, and they take out their frustration on Kabu. They were beating him. They used to tie him and just beat him, and they love to hear him scream out. This is a true story. It's not made up. So it happens that on this day, now they'd gotten to the end of it, and they decided, okay, now what? These people have nothing more to give us. Let's forget about it. Let's count our losses and move on this and go to attack other tribes. These guys, they're just too poor. And because they still had this Kabu, they thought they're not going to send him back. So what they wanted to, maybe flog him until he dies. The story goes that he was there, set, they were ready to get this going and, kill the boy, beat him to death or something. But then, that suddenly there was light that appeared. Yes, there was light that appeared. And the ropes and whatever whatever bonds were holding Kabu, they were all broken. And then Kabu had a voice saying, "Run, Kabu, run. Run, Kabu, run. Run, Kabu, run." And it was that miraculous by itself. There's a light, and then his bonds, he's freed, and then he's being told to run. And he ran. And he ran. First of all, he was weak because he had not been eating. He had been beaten, but he got the strength to run. And there was that light that was leading him. So he actually followed the light. He didn't run according to, I think our village is on this side, let me run back to our village. No, he ran and he followed the light. All the way he got to a point where he could now see the capital city of Sierra Leone. He ran all the way. He got, I think it was a school or a missionary. They took him, they looked at him, and they were shocked. How has he managed? Because he ran for kilometers, by the way. He got involved in mission work. And one amazing thing was, the missionaries now began, they used to teach people about, of course, Christianity. And one of the missionaries, a lady, was speaking about the soul experience, how soul saw a light, and there was a voice saying, "You're persecuting me," and that's how he got converted. And Kabu being Kabu, he was just that guy. He immediately interrupted the missionary and said, "That light also spoke to me. I saw that's exactly what happened to me." And therefore, the missionary was amazed. It was like, "Wait, tell us about it." And that began it formed the beginning of his training and teaching in he began to learn about Christianity. They taught him how to read and I think also write. He loved hearing about God. He was taught every day, and he was the kind that would go to the missionary and say, teach me more, I want to hear more. And so the missionary, the lady, she would teach him and teach him and teach him. And it got to a point where this missionary, the person, said, Kabu, when people got born again, they would change their names, to signify they are now not who they were, they've become a new creation. And she gave Kabu the name Samuel Morris in honor of her benefactor. The people who were, the benefactors who were still back in the US. And that Samuel Morris was a man of God, a man who had the Spirit of God. So whenever she looked at Kabu, she saw that same spirit of him. And so she called him Samuel Morris. And Kabu became Samuel Morris. And the relationship continued. And he got an education. And at one point they were just talking. And Kabu said, I want to know more about the Holy Spirit. And the lady said, Samuel, I've taught you everything I know about the Holy Spirit. I don't have any more to teach. Unless now the person who taught me can teach you, Stephen Merritt. He's the only one who can teach you. And this young Samuel Morris asked, where is he? And then the lady says, he's in New York City. And he says, can I then go to him so that he can teach me? She's like, oh, well, no, see, things don't work way you think. It's more complicated than you could imagine. And she was trying to show him it's not possible for you to leave Liberia, surely, to go to America, New York City, to look for one Stephen Merritt. But he said, Samuel Morris now said, let me go talk to my father. And he went, prayed, because he used to say that. Whenever he needed to pray, he always said, my father has said, let me talk to my father. He had that amazing relationship with God. And so he went, prays, then comes back and tells this lady, my father said that I should go to meet Stephen Merritt. Yes, that's what he said. And so now the only way to go was through a ship. And there was a ship at the dock. That's an entire story of how he even got to get on a ship. Because you can imagine back in those days, it wasn't easy. I mean, this is a young African man. It's those days of slavery. There was still the whole slavery and slave trade. And there was, of course, a lot of discrimination on the basis of skin color and all that stuff. But through God's providence, he got on the ship, traveled all the way to New York City. They land, by the way, during that entire journey from Liberia to New York, a lot had happened. God had given Samuel Morris, through a series of events, so much favor with the captain. By then now people had gotten saved on that cruise ship. The crewmen had gotten born again. I think even the captain himself, he had gotten his relationship with God had been restored. So when they docked at New York City, he was a bit concerned about this young boy who's never been to America before. How will he find his way? How will he find this gentleman? And he was trying to convince him, why don't you come with me to Indiana and, let's enjoy the fun life for a little bit as we try to figure out how to connect with this person that you came to meet. But Samuel Morris was determined and he said, no, my father said I should meet Stephen Merritt. He should teach me, who will teach me about the Holy Spirit, so I can't go with you. And because this young man was so determined, the captain just, they gave him a change of clothes. They all donated because they really loved him. They all donated to him a change of clothes and sent him on his merry way. So it so happens that on the street where Samuel Morris was walking, now it's New York City, he's walking on the street, then he sees, let's say a homeless man, let's call him a homeless man. So he sees this homeless man who's just sitting down there, nothing much. Then someone goes to him and asks him, do you know Stephen Merritt? I've come here to look for him. You will not believe this. But that man said, actually, I was in his convention like a week or 2 weeks ago. And says, I'll take you over there. And you pay me $1 for that. And he says, Samuel Morris says, yes, my father will pay. And so this man, homeless man, happily takes this young Samuel Morris over to that meeting. And they get to meet Stephen Merritt. Let me ask you, what are the odds that the first person, you're in a city you've never been before, what are the odds that the first person you ask for direction will take you right to the place that you're looking for? That was nothing but the hand of God. And as the story goes, so he's introduced to Samuel Merritt. Then the homeless man tells Samuel, where's my $1? And to which Samuel says, all my bills will be taken care of by Stephen Merritt. And it's recorded that Stephen Merritt did not even argue or ask that. Instead, he went back to his pocket, took $1, and gave the homeless man. And from that grows, we have the story of how he went to school. He went to university, and to date, Taylor University has a hall named Samuel Morris Hall. Why? This African man influenced the lives of the students and the people he came in contact with. Truth be told, he did not live for many years. He got sick after some time and, he passed on. But he even knew when he was going, because he said, my father said it's time for me to go home. But think of this individual. Samuel Morris, he did not have a ministry. He did not have a huge following of thousands and thousands of people. But to date, we still remember. Taylor University still has the memory of Samuel Morris, one individual who affected one life after another. All he ever did, his passion was for God. His passion was for the Holy Spirit to be manifested and for him to do what he needs to do wherever. And that is what influenced other lives that he came in contact with. Everyone had a testimony of, because of Samuel Morris, I learned my relationship with God is now better. You're thinking that revival has to be this huge thing, that it has to be carried by this entity. What you're forgetting is that it's you